I'd imagine we're well past worrying about whether or not the Steelers are legit, right? Right? Okay, good. Let's start taking this now to the next level. Good afternoon to you. Good Monday afternoon and happy Veterans Day to all who've served. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the new Double Shot show that comes your way at 4 p.m. Eastern every weekday. I'm back from Landover. You can see that I drove there and back overnight. I'm kind of feeling it a little bit today, but I would imagine that you're feeling it in a different way. You're feeling pretty good, and you should. They're feeling really good, and they should. And the reasons for that aren't always something that's obvious in the statistics. They're not just about the players or the plays or the rankings or even the film. Sometimes it's just about knowing that when your team needs something, whether it's out of you or whether it's out of a teammate or whether it's out of a positional group, they're going to get it. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be seamless. The oblong spheroid that they use in this game is not always going to bounce in some predictable way. But at the end of the game, you will have had more occasions in which you did little things right. Whether that's, something that's individual excellence like George Pickens catching, or whether it's just something that's really, really headsy like what a lot of the defensive guys were doing in this game. This team has that, and it keeps accumulating that over the course of each passing week. I know, I bring this up a lot, but you're going to have to hear me out, because yesterday in Landover provided so many examples of that in all honesty, when I walked out of that stadium, I wasn't even sure what angle I would take for the column that I was writing, for the show that I'd be doing, because there was so much of it. These guys are beginning to feed off of each other's small successes. These guys are beginning to expect not only that they'll do the right thing, but that the guy next to them will do the right thing. And that's a special place to be. Okay, I'm not going to get nuts here and start talking about big playoff successes and Super Bowls and stuff like that. I'm not into predictions anyway. But the trajectory of this team, and I've been saying this all along, is that they get a little bit better. They get a little bit better with each passing week. The only game I saw that I felt was a step backward in this regard was Dallas. That's it. Indianapolis, I throw out the window because the Colts played really well, and I thought they just basically kicked the Steelers' rear ends. That's going to happen on occasion too. Dallas was, and then, Dak Prescott was really sharp and whatever. Okay. These guys since then have taken every challenge and met it, more than met it at times. And they've done it in a way, well, look, yesterday, if you think about stuff that went wrong, if you think about the special teams, James Pierre dropping that football, and you think about the way it felt, probably to you, whether you made the trip down to Landover or whether you watched it on TV or whatever, it probably felt to you like, boy, that really pulled the plug on everything. There goes the momentum. And to an extent, that was accurate. You could sense in that stadium, at least among the people who were actually cheering for the Commanders, that things were heading down the other direction. But that's also part of the ebb and flow of playing a team that was 7-2 in their own stadium. It's something that you have to deal with. And the Steelers did deal with it. In fact, the special teams dealt with it. They did something in terms of execution and following through and getting on top of that football whenever that dude who kept muffing every punt for Washington muffed another one. They got on that ball. And then they get to third down, and you're thinking, they're not good. They've been bad on third down so far today. They're 0 for 4. They got to get this in the end zone. Can't bring Boz out. Not here. They got a touchdown. We got to get a touchdown. And Pat Freiermuth comes through. Russell Wilson finds him off to the right side, and Freiermuth fights through his guy to get in. Little stuff like that along the way. Responses to negative things. This is, and this might sound silly to some of you, in my covering really good teams, whether that's the Steelers or the Penguins, or even, a few years ago, the Pirates had their little spurt of going into the playoffs. Really good teams will find a way to make these things happen, and it becomes a skill set. It becomes part of who you are. It becomes, it was bad, but we knew it would be good. It becomes, I screwed up, but I knew this guy over here would be able to take care of me. This team has a ton of that right now. It doesn't mean they're going to run the table. It doesn't mean that they're as good as they can be. I could also, if I wanted to, spend this entire show on stuff that went wrong. I could just sit here and bury Joey Porter Jr. for the way he played. I'm not going to do that. Not today. Not today. Not when the overarching feel about this team is that it's going to end well. That's pretty neat. When we come back, Chris Halleck.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Joined now by Chris Halleck, who somehow made it back after 8 hours in the car with this guy. Landover, Maryland, and back.
Man,
Chris, if there's one takeaway, a single individual takeaway that I had from this game, it was I don't know if I want to call it sudden, but it was definitely a rise out of Patrick Queen, wasn't it?
oh yeah, he was all over the place, and just a little bit that I've been able to kind of go back and watch the game today. It was just as what we saw live. He was everywhere. His read and react was there. He was doing a great job of communicating the plays ahead, obviously in between plays, and communicating everything that needed to be done, but then making plays himself and chasing down Jaden Daniels in space like that. That's elite level stuff right there. And he really showed just what he's capable of when he's not having to also, oh, by the way, I'm still learning the defense and everything.
Yeah, it's been a thing that he has cited many, many times. It might have sounded to some like it was an excuse, like he's, well, I'm the green dot guy and I need to learn what all I'm doing here. He actually did have to do that. He has to run this defense, Chris. And I think that part might have gone both unnoticed and underappreciated.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the Ravens don't play the same type of defense the Steelers do. It's a brand new system. He's got to learn all the new language, all the different, communication and verbiage that they use. It's a completely different system, and it's not something you can just get through training camp and preseason and be like, all right, week one, I am ready to go. I know everything. And it's also getting used to the way Atlanta Roberts plays next to him. It's getting used to the way that the defensive line, how they play with their gap integrity, how they like to defend certain things. Because when you play behind a guy like Cam Hayward, he does things different than most guys because he's just a special type of player. He has to learn how to play, what it's like to play behind him. He has to learn what it's like to play behind a guy like TJ Watt, who plays like nobody else on the planet. That stuff takes time. You're going to have to, there are going to be adjustments, and you're finally seeing him really, now all that stuff is kind of behind him. Now he can just kind of play.
Well, you made an interesting choice yesterday in the locker room. We're both down there to an extent. We're winging what we do. We have a little bit of a plan, but you have to kind of react to whatever's being spoken around you and who's available. And when you were writing about the big fourth down stop that Minkah Fitzpatrick and DeMonte Casey had jointly on Zach Ertz, stopping him, like maybe a millimeter shy of what would have been a pretty big first down for Washington. You went to Queen because you wanted to know what the play call was, because it emanates either from him or comes through him, but he's got to be aware of absolutely everything, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I said, he knows all of the details when it comes to these play calls, and like the fact that I can go to him, you would think, okay, we'll go to Minkah or go to Casey, the guys who actually made the plays. Like, no, that this is the guy who knows he's got to quarterback all of that. He's got to, he's the one who makes the call, and he, explained that to me, and I've got it on DKPittsburghSports.com right now, and he explains the play, explains the variation of cover 3 that they were in. So that they could best defend a 4th and 9 in which they have to get 9 yards. And there were some differences from what you would normally see in like your vanilla cover 3. And him explaining those details just goes to show how much homework he's done, how much he knows about this defense. Even though he's not the one making the play, he knows where everybody's supposed to be. He knows what everybody's supposed to do. And that's the reason why I wanted to go to him. Plus, he's also just like, that's like the plus he was right there. I walked in the locker room. He was literally right there sitting like right next to the doorway. And I see him. I'm just like, man, you were all over the place. He goes, I had to.
Yeah. He understands the assignment. He also understands the expectations that I think Pittsburghers had from him coming here. And this was the big free agent signing and everything. And but he also understood, and this is the part that I respect the most, that none of this was going to work if he didn't nail down the entire defense first. That's something that I'd heard from both him and Peyton Wilson, the rookie, from camp all the way through the preseason and into the regular season, which is that our games will come. We got to figure out all this other stuff first. And then our games will be fed by instinct more than anything else. So when you see Queen sprint full bore laterally to run Daniels out of bounds, Daniels thought he had that edge. Okay. Daniels thought that was a nice play call by Washington. They had it blocked. They had it schemed. They had everything right except for one thing. And Queen ends up shoving, running him really Daniels out of bounds. And I noticed that Daniels had said something to Queen. You could just tell, you can see their, the body language, the helmet's moving. And I asked Queen, what did he say to you? He goes, I like you, 6. We're going to be doing this all day. So I give the kid credit for having a sense of humor about it. But guess what wasn't funny to anybody on the Commander's side? 4 rushing yards for a guy who had 459 coming into the game. They eliminated that component of the Commanders game completely. It just stopped existing.
Yeah, everybody wants to focus on the 27 points that were scored by the Commanders yesterday. Holding them to under 250 yards of total offense and to only 60 yards on the ground, that's massive. That played a huge role into winning that football game. It may not seem like it, but it did. And Patrick Queen was a big part of that, being able to contain Jaden Daniels when he had run amok pretty much every other week this season. That sideline to sideline speed, being able to chase down a quarterback like that, that's special stuff.
It's Ryan Shazier. It's Ryan Shazier. Oh, well, let's just say what it is. That's the stuff that Shazier was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Steelers have sorely missed that in the middle of their defense. And I don't think anybody should have come into the season expecting Patrick Queen to be that guy week 1. It's going to take time. September is usually a time where teams are still working the kinks out. People will see the Saints after 2 weeks and be like, why can't we do that? Well, look at the Saints now. They're an absolute train wreck. Even though they beat Atlanta on Sunday, it still doesn't matter. They're still a bad football team. You don't make judgments in September. You wait and see how the team develops, and you're seeing you're seeing the results of that with the way Patrick Queen is playing. Patrick
Queen said this when he was signed. I'm going to say it now and say it from the heart. Patrick Queen is a star linebacker in the NFL, and Pittsburgh's about to see that. When we come back, J1Q.
Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
Time now for J1Q, and we're going way down under to Alexander Hughes in Sydney, Australia.
Hey DK. All off-season and up until the trade deadline, the talk in Steelers Nation was all about when is Omar Khan going to add a wide receiver too, and the most common names thrown out there were Brandon Ayuk and Devontae Adams. My question to you is, do you think that the Steelers have actually found the perfect complementary piece for Russell Wilson in Mike Williams, considering how Russ throws the deep ball and Williams' ability to catch the deep ball in stride and at speed?
Well, I guess the easiest way to answer that, and probably the laziest way, would be to say, small sample size. It was a great throw and a great catch. It was an impactful throw and an impactful catch, but it was just one of all of those things. And we'll see how that goes over time. Let me tell you the part that I like, Alexander, in addition to the fact that, you're going to have Williams have a full week of practice and a full week of being able to study the Ravens and have real plays designed for him and everything else. I like the fact that there's now another non-George Pickens wide receiver on the team who won't react to these Russell Wilson moonballs as if they're things that they've never seen before. Let's be real here, okay? When Russ threw these things up throughout the game to either Calvin Austin or to Van Jefferson, they did not exactly have healthy reactions to them. More often than not, they didn't even know they were coming. They didn't know where to look. They didn't know which shoulder. I'm not being mean here. I'm just relaying what was seen right there on the field repeatedly. That can't happen because Russ has this thing as an actual talent. It's part of his toolkit. He's really, really good at it. And if you have only one wide receiver on the roster who can take advantage of it, and boy, can George take advantage of it. In fact, it's almost been a godsend for him. Then it's that much easier to commit to just taking George away. Think about who the opponent is this weekend. Think about John Harbaugh and the way he's handled whenever the Steelers have what he perceives to be a singular threat. He'll just take that player and erase them, Bill Belichick style. He'll just say, listen, Antonio Brown this week is not going to beat me. If I have to put 3 guys on him, he's not going to come away with a blessed catch. Le'Veon Bell is not going to beat me. If I have to stack 10 in the box and just leave Ed Reed alone in the back, I'm going to do that. He's not going to beat me. Well, if Harbaugh were to do that now, and I'm not saying he will. I think Harbaugh's going to be a lot more committed to stopping Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren than anything else. But if he were, just hypothetically, if he were to say, I'm not letting George beat me, then if you have another guy who can catch those types of passes, now you're in a different mindset if you're Arthur Smith, and in particular, if you're Russ. You're not hesitating. You're not wondering, does this person even know how to catch this type of ball? You're just putting it up there and not hoping for the best, but, expecting the best. I appreciate the question. Really good one. I appreciate everybody who checks out the double shot of Steelers. I really appreciate our nation's military veterans. Hope you had a wonderful Veterans Day, and we will be back with another one of these tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern.